Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Welcome.
Today, we're cutting right to the
Today,
core
we're
of
gonna
some really
dive into
essential
some
health
of the
topics.
biggest
We're focusing on the
health
challenges facing young women.
challenges
You gave us a
young
great
women
stack
are
of sources detailing
facing.
10 most common issues.
And
And
what
our
we're
mission
gonna
today is to,
find
well,
is
deliver
that
the ultimate
it's
shortcut. We
not
want to
just
distill those
some
findings down to what's
random
truly
list of
essential. So, not just the
problems.
symptoms you might
It's
recognize, but the
actually a
surprising
story
root causes
about
that actually
how
connect them all.
It's a really
everything
crucial
is
mission because while the
surprisingly
list covers, everything from
connected.
UTIs to anxiety, the data is very clear. These
So
aren't isolated
let's
events.
start with the
If you look
big
closely, the sources
question.
really reveal just a
What
few core drivers.
are the
We're talking about
key
hormonal
health
changes, certain lifestyle
challenges for
deficits, and of
young
course, mental
women
health.
right
And
now?
those few things are
It's
responsible for almost
something a
everything on
lot
the
of
list.
us
We're going to
wonder
trace those
about,
invisible
and
threads
the
and show you where
answer
one problem
isn't
really
a
starts to feed the
simple
next.
Okay, let's unpack this.
checklist.
We're going to start where the
It's
biological
more
foundation
like
is,
a
the
web of
strongest, focusing on
connections
issues
that
driven mostly
actually
by physical
starts
processes and
deep
anatomy. So we're
inside
starting
our
with the
own
hormonal and reproductive
bodies.
core.
Ready when you are.
Because
Leading the charge are
this is
menstrual
really a
irregularities.
story
Our sources
about how
outline the
our
key symptoms:
physical
unpredictable
health, our
timing, heavy flow,
mental
and very painful
health,
periods.
and even
The
the
clinical
world
term for that
around
intense
us
pain
are
is
all
dysmenorrhea.
tangled up
And the main
together.
takeaway, which we saw again and again in the
So
material,
let's
is that the
kick
cause
things
is
off with
systemic
the
hormonal
very
imbalances.
And that's an important
foundation,
distinction. We're
our
not talking about,
physical
simple
health.
cramps. We're talking about debilitating
Okay,
pain that can
first
really
up,
impact daily
our
life. What's fascinating is
hormonal
that these imbalances are
blueprint.
often a critical
You
early
can
warning
think
sign
of
for the
these
next
as
condition
the
on the list, which is a
powerful
bit more complex.
internal
Polycystic ovary
signals
syndrome,
that
or
have a
PCOS.
Tell us a bit
very
more about that connection.
real,
Well, PCOS is a
very
major endocrine
physical
disorder, and it directly
impact
makes those
on our
initial irregularities much,
bodies,
much worse.
Yep.
But here's where we
often
get to that
in ways
surprising root
we
cause we
don't
mentioned.
even see
While we
coming.
think of PCOS as being purely
And
hormonal,
here's
the
the
sources really
thing
emphasize
you
the critical role
really
of
need
insulin
to
resistance
know.
in driving it. So that links it
Hormonal
kind of
imbalances
unexpectedly
are
to
so
how the body
often
processes
the
sugar and
root
refined carbs.
cause
If you
of a
connect that to the bigger
ton
picture,
of
it means a
common
reproductive
health
challenge is often
issues.
rooted in your metabolic
They're
health.
like
So
this
metabolic issues can ripple out
invisible
into reproductive
force
issues, which
driving
in turn
so
can ripple out into the
many
next
of
area,
the
your skin.
things we
We see
feel
common skin
and
problems listed next,
experience.
specifically acne, eczema, and rashes.
And
I'm
this
guessing
is
the
where
data
it
ties us
gets
back to that first point.
really
Absolutely. The body is an
interesting.
ecosystem,
I
right?
mean, look at
When those
this.
hormonal imbalances,
Whether
especially
we're
higher levels of
talking
androgens you often
about
see with PCOS, start
menstrual
circulating, the skin is often
irregularities,
the first place you see it on the outside.
skin
It's a direct
issues
hormonal
like
driver.
Causing what,
acne,
mostly?
or
Oil
even
overproduction.
Exactly. Oil
something
gland
like
overproduction and that classic cystic acne.
PCOS.
That's a really clear
What's the
cause and
common
effect here.
thread?
Now let's talk about a different type
It's
of physical issue:
hormones.
infections.
And
Urinary
you'll
tract
notice
infections,
with
or UTIs, are listed
PCOS,
as extremely common.
nutrition
And
is
this is where the root
listed
cause shifts
as
completely.
a factor
The previous
too,
issues were all about systemic
which is
chemistry,
a great
but
little
UTIs are
clue
almost
about
purely
how everything
mechanical.
connects.
You know, the symptoms that frequent urge,
All right,
burning,
so
sometimes a fever.
let's shift
What the sources really
gears
highlight
from
is
the
that these are just
purely
disproportionately common in
physical
young
and
girls for
talk about
anatomical
our
reasons.
minds.
What reason is that?
The shorter length of the
Because
urethra.
there's
So it's
this
just a mechanical
incredibly
vulnerability. It makes the
strong
path for
link
bacteria much,
between
much
our
shorter.
bodies
Exactly. It's a
and
crucial
our
reminder that,
emotional
not every health
well-being.
challenge is driven by hormones
And
or
getting a
stress. Some
handle
of it is
on
just
it
down to
is
physical structure. It kind of
absolutely
stands out on this
key.
list because it doesn't quite fit the pattern of
This
the others.
chart does
That sets us
a
up
really
perfectly for our
good
second
job
segment,
of
where
showing the
environment and
whole
nutrition really start to dictate the
landscape of
outcomes.
mental
We're moving into the
wellness.
nutritional and environmental
You
links.
see, it's
So,
not
how
about
modern habits
these
and deficiencies
separate,
impact the way our bodies function.
isolated
This is where you can see the
problems.
consequences of,
It's more of
inadequate
a
fuel and rest
complete
becoming
picture.
immediately obvious in the
Or
research.
things
Let's
like
start with anemia. This is often
depression,
seen in young women for two very
anxiety,
specific
eating
and sadly
disorders,
interconnected
and
reasons:
stress
poor
are
nutrition
all
and significant menstrual
deeply
bleeding. The source
intertwined.
material is very clear
So
that the most
let's
common
zoom
type
in
is
on
iron deficiency
depression and
anemia.
That creates a
anxiety.
perfect storm. We
There
just
are
talked about heavy menstrual
two
flow, right?
huge
So if
factors
that
at
loss of blood isn't
play.
being fully replaced by iron in your
First,
diet,
you've
the
got
body
the
is just constantly constantly running a deficit,
shifts
and that depletion
we were
directly
just
impacts your red blood cell count,
about.
leading to those
And
classic symptoms of
second,
intense fatigue and
there
weakness.
are
So
the
it's a clear
social
nutritional problem made
pressures
worse by the
we
body's
all
normal processes.
face.
Exactly.
And from that
It's
state
a
of deficit, we
perfect
move right to weak
example
immune
of the
systems.
link
So if you're
between our
experiencing frequent
internal
colds, the flu, just
biology
picking up every bug that
and
goes
our
around,
external
the data
world.
points squarely at lifestyle.
You can draw a
Now,
straight
the
line. A
conversation
straight line from
also
poor fuel
brings
cell,
up
poor
a
nutrition, and
whole
inadequate rest
range
to a
of
weakened
eating
immune system.
disorders.
When the body is
We're
constantly
talking
struggling with
about
irregular sleep and,
anorexia,
erratic eating habits, your cortisol
bulimia,
levels go up.
binge
And that
eating,
suppresses the immune
even
response. Simply
compulsive
put, the
or
body just doesn't have the
restrictive
resources or the
eating.
rest it needs to mount a strong
Just
defense.
knowing that these
Speaking of modern
different
deficits, our sources
forms
highlight a major
exist
environmental
is a
problem that is surprisingly
huge
widespread.
first step.
Vitamin D deficiency. This comes with symptoms
And
like
this
bone pain
quote right
and chronic
here,
fatigue.
it
This one might be
just
the ultimate
hits
sign of our
the
indoor
nail
screen-based
on the
lifestyle.
head.
We are literally designed to
These
absorb sunlight to produce
conditions are
vitamin D.
never
It's essential for
just
bone
about
health,
food.
mood, immune function.
They're tied
You name it.
so deeply
And the key detail
to
that's
how we
repeated in the
see
sources is the link to spending
ourselves
almost
and
all of your
our
time indoors,
emotional
a fundamental lack of
struggles.
sun exposure.
It seems like a
It's
completely
often
avoidable
an
deficiency, but it's
external
everywhere in modern society.
sign
It is.
of
It's
a
amazing how
really
anatomy sets the
tough
stage, but then
internal
environment and our modern
battle.
habits really dictate everything.
Okay, so these three
And
areas,
boom,
anemia, weak immunity, and
here's that
vitamin D deficiency, they show
interconnectedness
how
in
crucial
action
proper rest
again.
and fuel are for just
Addictions
baseline physical
rarely
function.
just pop
Precisely.
up out
And
of
now we have to
nowhere.
pivot. We
A
have to
lot
pivot
of the
to what
time,
might be
they're
the biggest
actually
driver of
triggered
long-term
by
health challenges.
stress or
The mental health axis.
depression or
The data shows these issues
anxiety.
don't just exist on their own.
It
They
shows
feed
you
viciously
how
into one another,
one
and they often become the
challenge
main
can
mechanism breaking down a
literally
person's holistic
fuel
health.
another
This is really the
one.
crux of the whole picture. We have to start with
Okay,
depression and anxiety. They feature
let's
so
talk about
profoundly in the sources.
something
The
we
symptoms
have
often
a
overlap,
bit
especially in young
more
people. You see
control
rapid
over:
emotional swings,
our
chronic anxiety,
daily
social withdrawal,
habits,
and
the
persistent sleep problems.
small
And we're talking
choices
about a
we
really
make
intense period of life here,
day
adolescence,
in
early
and
adulthood.
day
What
out
does the research say about the
can have a
causes? Is it still just
massive
about hormones?
It's
impact
partially
on
about
our
hormones, yes.
overall
Yeah.
The
health
sources really synthesize the
and
causes as
our
being dual.
ability to
Internal hormonal
bounce
shifts are
back
definitely a
from
factor, but they are
things.
compounded heavily by significant
Let's
social
start
pressures.
with
Right,
sleep.
external expectations.
And I'm not
Exactly.
just talking
Academic
about
performance,
feeling a
social
little
media comparisons,
tired.
body image pressures,
Sleep
trying to establish
disorders
your
are a
independence.
whole
It's a period where your
pattern.
internal chemistry
Going
meets
to
this
bed
overwhelming
late,
external expectation.
not getting good
And that often results
quality
in
rest,
chronic stress and
and then
profound mental health
feeling
struggles.
wiped
And
out
those
all
internal struggles
day.
are often managed by trying to find
And what's
control in
often
external
behind
ways.
it?
Which brings us to the next
Two
point.
very modern
Eating
culprits.
disorders. The
Way
sources
too
detail
much
a really
screen
wide and
time
challenging spectrum
and,
here.
you
Anorexia,
guessed it,
bulimia, binge eating.
stress.
Compulsive eating, restrictive eating. The
So
variety
let's
itself just underscores how
trace
complex
a
this is.
line
And while they
from
all
our
manifest differently,
habits
the crucial insight from the
directly
data is that
to
these
our
disorders are
health.
overwhelmingly
It
associated
all
with body image
starts
issues,
with
yes, but
something that
combined with an
sounds
underlying emotional
so
distress.
normal,
So it's not just about
right?
food.
Not at all. When a person feels
Irregular
overwhelming
sleep
anxiety
and
or a lack
eating
of control over their life,
habits.
school, family, social
But
life, controlling food
these
intake,
little
or their weight becomes a
things, they
powerful,
aren't
immediate
just
coping mechanism.
one-off
It's a destructive one,
issues.
but it's a coping
They
mechanism.
can
The desire for
actually
control
set
is
off
what
a
really drives the
whole
behavior.
chain
That takes us directly
reaction
into sleep
inside your
disorders.
body.
So if you're
That
having trouble
leads
falling asleep, you're going to bed
directly
consistently late,
to
your sleep
a
quality is poor, or you have
weakened
constant daytime
immune
fatigue.
system.
The sources give us a very modern
There it
set of
is.
causes.
And those
It's
causes
a
are screen
clear
time and
cause
stress. No
and
surprise there.
effect.
But what's
All
fascinating,
of a
and what you really need to
sudden,
remember
you
here,
know,
is the
getting
vicious cycle at
sick
play.
all the
We
time,
noted earlier that
or
poor sleep quality is often a
feeling
symptom of anxiety and
constantly
depression.
drained.
But the sources also list
It
it as a cause
starts
of
to
those same
make a
issues,
whole
and a
lot
cause of a
more
weak immune system.
sense
So
when
sleep
you
is
see it's
both
a
the victim of
direct
stress and the
result of
culprit
our
that breaks down
daily
our ability to cope with it.
routines.
Precisely. If you're being bombarded by
And
blue light and stimulation
finally,
from screens late at night,
let's
your
touch
brain
on
just can't
some
start
of
those
the
restorative processes. If
invisible
you're stressed, your mind won't shut
factors
down. That cycle
The
means poor sleep
environment
becomes the
we're
central
in
mechanism that
has
makes
a
everything else worse. If you can fix sleep,
huge
you can
impact
potentially
on our
mitigate the drivers for
health.
anxiety, for poor
And a
immunity,
lot of
even for weight
times we
regulation
don't
issues.
even
It's a
think
critical
about
link in
it.
the entire chain.
And that
I
level of
mean,
distress, that lack of rest,
just
it
think
often pushes
about
people
our
toward external
modern
solutions for relief.
indoor lives.
Which brings us to our
We
final category,
spend so
addictions.
much
The
time
sources mention the full
inside,
range: alcohol, drugs,
which
gambling, sex, and
means
smoking.
we
And this is
get
the logical,
way
though
less
obviously
sun
unfortunate, conclusion to
exposure.
that story of
And
anxiety and sleep
since the
deficit.
sun
What
is
stands
our
out in the data is how
main
consistently
source of
addiction ties back,
vitamin
not to
D,
just a simple bad
a
habit,
lot
but to
of
managing
us
that deep
end
emotional
up
distress.
deficient,
These behaviors become a
which
highly
can
damaging
lead
form
to
of
things
self-medication.
like
It's a way to
bone
dull overwhelming
pain
anxiety, to escape
and
depression, or
just
to artificially
feeling
boost your mood when your
tired all
body's
the
just depleted and
time.
exhausted.
So if we look at
It's
the whole
really
picture,
the
from hormonal acne
perfect
all the way to substance use,
example
it's
of
pretty stunning
how
how
our
frequently the same few
external
foundational issues are at the
worlds,
heart of it all.
That's the real
where
insight.
we
That's what we want you to walk away
live,
with.
where
If we
we
just synthesize the core
work,
themes across all 10 of
has a
these, you
direct
see three
line
factors that
to
appear again and
what's
again. They
happening
are the fundamental
inside our
underlying issues connecting all these
bodies.
seemingly separate diagnoses. First,
So,
hormonal imbalances.
if you take
Second, stress and
away
anxiety.
just
And
one
third,
thing
poor
from
sleep and
all of
eating habits.
this,
So this
let
isn't
it
just a
be
list of 10
this.
problems. It's a highly reactive
Everything
ecosystem.
is
Knowledge is
connected.
application, right?
Your
Understanding these
hormones,
connections
your
gives you a shortcut to
mind,
recognizing
your
holistic health
daily
needs, far beyond
habits,
just treating
your
a single symptom.
So what does
environment.
this all mean for you?
They're
This
all
deep dive
having a
really reveals that physical
constant
health, whether we're talking about
conversation with
anemia,
each
vitamin D
other.
levels, or those persistent skin issues,
Today,
is often
we've
inseparable
kind
from
of
your lifestyle and your
followed the
emotional health. You can't
trail, right?
sustainably treat the acne without
We've
addressing the
seen
hormones,
how
and you certainly can't
hormonal
build a strong
health
immune
can
system if you're running on
affect
an
our
irregular sleep schedule
mental
and constant stress.
well-being,
Absolutely. The
which
holistic
in
approach isn't just
turn
a
is
buzzword, it's what the
shaped by
data
our
demands.
daily
And that leaves us with a
habits.
final thought for you to consider
It's
based
this
on all this material.
whole
Since the list so
cycle
heavily
where
emphasizes
every
irregular
single
habits,
part
sleep and
affects
eating,
the
and emotional
next.
distress, anxiety, and
And
depression
that
as these common,
really
pervasive
leaves
The
us
causes.
with
causes that cut
one
across multiple physical
final
diseases.
crucial
Consider this.
question.
It's addressing the underlying stress
Now
and your
that
sleep
we
quality
know
can
all these
potentially mitigate issues
connections
ranging
are
from skin problems
real,
to immune function
how
and even
can we
addiction
start
risk.
to get
Which of the
better
10
at
challenges we listed is the most
actually
profound bellwether for overall
listening to
well-being?
our
Which one tells the
bodies
most complete story
and
about a
start
person's total
treating our
holistic health?
health
Something for you to
not
mull
like
over
a
until the next
list
deep
of
dive.
separate